5:25. Candle lighting is at 5:26. Again, 5:10 Shir Shirim. 5:25 is Mincha, followed by candle lighting at 5:26. We'd like to thank Torah Anytime as well as Shul.com and Sharei Ezra. Today is Yud Gimel Tevet. It's brought down that this is the Yartzai many tzaddikim tzidkaniyot, most notably that of the tzaddik of Ranana, Rabbi Yitzchak ben Rabbi Asher Anshal Kohen Hoberman, who was known as a tremendous Poel Yeshuot, someone that people turned to, even though Ranana at that time was a very small community, but he was known to be a tremendous tzaddik, and he was maftiach that anyone that prays on his behalf or learns on his behalf, ultimately he'll have Yeshua. So hopefully HaKadosh Baruch Hu should grant us that as well, learning Lilu Nishmato amongst other tzaddikim and tzidkaniyot. The halacha is that the Mishnah tells us that certain items, although they are byproducts from the ground, they are not considered actual ground byproducts, and therefore you do not make a Berei Pri Adama. So for example, it's a Mishnah Meforeshet. You have, let's say, cheese, milk, or let's say the meat of an animal. Although technically they do eat from the ground, they are yonek from the ground. However, once that byproduct gets consumed and it's now part of that animal, it is no longer considered that of a Borei Pri Adama. Rather, it's shakol niya b'dvaro. And even if a person were to be a bit of a wise guy and say, well, everything comes from Mother Earth, and therefore I'm going to make the bracha Borei Pri Adama, lo yatsa. It's like making a Borei Pri Eitz on a drink or something. It doesn't mean anything. And therefore it's a total bracha levatala, and a person would have to go back and make the bracha again. Also, if a person, let's say, takes, chicken as well, and even if one were to coat it with pieces of kamach, of let's say pieces of flour, to put it together, and you want it to look nice or taste nice or be very crunchy, that also would be a shakol niya b'dvaro, because Yakut Yosef says that the purpose of the kamach, the purpose of whatever it may be that you're coating it with, is not for the actual, that's not the ikar. The ikar is the ov shenitzal. It's you want to have the actual meat. You don't want it to be of the crunchy item, and therefore you make a shakol as well. Parenthetically, I'm not sure why he doesn't say this, but some poskim say if it's so thick that it's mamash kemach, it's like literally some people say mizonot, but he's not a fan of that. Obviously, he says that it will be shakol in all cases because the entire purpose of the kemach is not for it's for taste, and it's a little bit of a crunch, and it's not for in any way considered a borei mizonot. He says a shakol. Anyways, you would say with a shakol. So if you make a shakol, that would be okay according to everyone. It's very interesting. If you look in the Shemona, right before the Shemona Esrei, a person's getting ready to, like we said, and they're about to start the Shemona Esrei, about to be nechnas lefnai v'lefnim. A person says, now count, Tzur Yisrael. First time it says Yisrael. Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael. Second time Yisrael. Uvteich numechu Yudav Yisrael. Third time. Go'aleinu Hashem tzvokot shmo kadosh Yisrael. Fourth time. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. 5 times it says the words Yisrael. Why? Why do we say those 5 times? So the Mefarshim tell us it's either because in Parshat Balotcha it says that the Kohanim, before they would go in to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it says the following, that mitoch b'nei Yisrael, the Leviim, they would serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, mitoch b'nei Yisrael, amongst b'nei Yisrael, 1 time it says Yisrael, la'avod et avodat b'nei Yisrael, 2nd time b'nei Yisrael, be'ol moed l'chaper al b'nei Yisrael, to be mechaper on b'nei Yisrael, V'lo yeh b'nei Yisrael, negev, b'nei Yisrael should not have any calamity, Begeshet b'nei Yisrael, 5th time, El HaKodesh, saying the 5 times. The person has to realize, you're walking into the Lifnai v'Lifnim, whether you're a Kohen or not a Kohen, it doesn't make a difference. You're coming in to speak to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if you're about to speak to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, get yourself ready. You're like a Kohen, Nechnas Lifnai v'Lifnim. Those 5 things, we say them dafka to say before, get yourself ready. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's go. And you're about to go into the Lifnai v'Lifnim. Also represents Chamisha Chumshei Torah. Again, a person understands they have the weight of responsibility of the entire Torah on them, and ultimately they should give the sanctity of that when they're saying Shemona Esrei as well. Just 2 more ideas with this we'll conclude. That there's a discussion. If, let's say somebody has 2 babies, and one baby is, for whatever reason, one baby is ready to have a Brit Milah on Erev Shabbat, and the other one is on Shabbat. You're talking about like these Mo'alim, the Baruch Hashem, they're very, very proliferous, they're going all around doing Brit Milah. Okay, and what happened was they mixed up the babies. The baby that was supposed to be on Erev Shabbat, they accidentally mixed it up, and they gave that baby, instead of it doing it on Erev Shabbat, a totally healthy baby, they did it the next day on Shabbat. Now the problem with that is that once the baby's Brit Milah is no longer on the proper day, you cannot be Mechalel Shabbat to give the baby a Brit Milah. You can't give the baby a Brit on Shabbat because it's not Yom HaShmini, it's not his 8th day. So what's the question? The question is like this. This is considered an Aveda in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You gave a Brit Milah to a child that shouldn't have got a Brit Milah, and now you're giving it. So basically, that's called Ta'ah B'Dvar Mitzvah. A person made a mistake in doing a Dvar Mitzvah. Is a person liable or not? It says the Gemara Patur, because the person didn't know. So the question is, the Chakira is, how does that work? Is it because really you innocently didn't do anything wrong? I really didn't know. It's not my fault. How should I have known? Therefore, we say you're patur. It's like Tama Melech. The Kadosh Baruch Hu says, we'll give you a free pass on that. It's not your fault. Or do we say, no. You did something wrong, but you don't have to bring a korban. What's a nafkamina? Nafkamina is, when it comes to Yom Kippur, you have to give another hit on the chest and say, al chet, I'm sorry for doing that. If you learn that it was nothing wrong, no harm, no foul, okay. Or do you say that, no, you really did do something wrong, but you don't bring a korban, you did do something wrong in that case. Just we'll conclude with this idea. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says a beautiful idea where he says, when Levi and Yosef, they did not carry the coffin of Yaakov, back to Eretz Yisrael, and the reason why is that Rashi brings and tells us, because Levi is going to eventually carry the Aron Hashem, and because he's going to carry the Aron Hashem, he always has to maintain a certain level of Tahara, and you can't carry a met, you can't carry a dead person, even if it's your father. And Yosef was exempt from carrying his father because he was a melech. And Yaakov did not want these two sons of his to actually carry his body. So who was the substitute? It says all 12 shatim, they carried him. So who was the substitute? Yosef's children, Menashe and Ephraim, they were the ones that carried them. So the question is, over here, asked Lubavitcher Rebbe, he says, 1 second, but we know that when the Levi and Yosef, when they were doing this, the reason why is Yaakov told them, I want you to realize that you're going into Galut, and then when you leave Mitzrayim, going into Galut, you have to carry the same way you're carrying me now, I want you to carry me later. So meaning, you're part of the Galut. That's what he's telling his children. You're all together in Galut. So 1 second, so Levi and Yosef are not part of the Galut? That's basically what you're saying. They're not part of that because they don't have to carry him. The people will get very upset and say, wait a second, what? What about us? How did that not happen? So says Lubavitcher Rebbe, he says an unbelievable thing. People make a mistake and think that if you're not doing the same thing that someone else is doing, you're not involved. And that's not true. He doesn't give this example, but I'll give this example. It's like you have the air traffic controller inside a cavernous place. Doesn't look like he's doing anything. All he is, he's doing all these buttons and talking on whatever he's talking to. Doesn't look like he's doing anything. Oh, but the pilot, or the baggage handler, oh, they're doing a lot, right? Meanwhile, they're doing the exact same thing, which is making sure people are safe and traveling and getting from destination A to B. They're doing the exact same thing, just because it doesn't look like it, but they're doing the same thing. So it's the same thing too for Galut as well. Yaakov understood there are people who are actually going to do actual physical hard manual labor. But then there are people who, they want to learn Torah, they want to teach Torah, but they have to teach Torah to the masses of people who are just not interested. And that's very difficult as well. And he says, that's also Galut. He says, Levi, who was the tribe that represented a high level of spirituality, to bring the people up. Yosef, who was Melecha, representing that they were out there helping people, doing Yishtadlanut to help people in all scenarios ever possible. That also is Galut. And he says a person has to recognize when people are doing something, we're all in it together. And don't look askance at somebody that just because they don't understand what they're doing. We have to understand everyone is together, all for one and one for all. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu ultimately should bring the Geulah Shlema b'meher v'yameinu. Amen. Rabbi Chanan ben Akasha Omer, Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'zakot et Yisrael. Fikach lahem Torah mitzvot.